Hi, my name's Ian from IELTS Guru, and in this video I want to talk about the IELTS speaking test. And more particularly, I want to talk about part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. To give you some basics, in the IELTS speaking test, you might think it's just one long interview, but really the interview is actually split into 3 different parts. Now there's part 1, where the examiner will ask you questions about yourself and about some general topics. And then there is part 2 where you have to speak for 1 to 2 minutes non-stop. And then there's part 3 where you actually have to engage in a discussion with the examiner. Well, for this video, I only really want to talk about part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. So what kind of questions can you expect to be asked by the examiner in part 1? Well, the examiner will choose different topics to talk about, and actually the examiner is not really talking about the topics because the examiner is only reading questions that you have to answer. But the examiner will choose the different topics. So, for example, for the very first part of the speaking test, the examiner will ask you one of 2 things. So either he or she's going to ask you about where you live, and there might be questions about your hometown or about your neighborhood or the kind of house or apartment that you live in, or he or she will ask you about what you currently do. So for example, like what are you doing right now? Are you working or are you a student? And then if you say you're a student, then the questions will be something about what you're studying and perhaps why you're studying that subject and whether you like that subject. Or if you're working, it will be very similar. The examiner will ask you about your job and what you do at your job and if you like your job. So you're not going to be asked both types of questions. It's either going to be where you live, or it's going to be about your job or what you're currently doing. So that's the first part of the interview. Now, after that, the examiner will move on to some more general topics, and he will pick, or she, depending if it's a man or a woman, will pick 2 more topics. So the next topic might be about music. So what kind of music do you listen to? Okay, and do you listen to the same kind of music now as when you were younger? So there are kind of very general questions about yourself and the topic. It could be also something about food. For example, what kind of food do you like eating? Do you like spicy food? What kind of food did you like when you were younger? So these are very general topics and everybody should be able to answer them. So it doesn't matter whether you are just 12 years old or you are 55 years old and you are working. Everybody should be able to answer these questions. So they're not very difficult. Now, what should you do? Well, I want to give you 3 tips today. So the first tip is you should never give short answers. You should always try to give extended answers. So if the question is, do you like listening to music? And I simply say, yes. Well, that's not a very good answer because it's too short. You want to speak for a longer period of time because that means that your fluency score will go up. So again, the same question, if the examiner asks me, do you listen to music or do you like listening to music? And I can say yes. And then I can do one of 2 things. I can either perhaps give a reason why, but that would be kind of stupid, like why do you listen to music? Well, people listen to music to relax. Or I could give an example. So I could say, yes, I like listening to music, and particularly I like rock music or hip-hop music or whatever music you like. So that's one thing I should do. I should never give short answers. I should answer and then perhaps give a reason or perhaps give an example. Okay, so if the question is about food and the examiner asks me about, do you like spicy food? I could say yes, and then maybe I should give an example. Okay, yes, I like spicy food. For example, I like to eat my pizza very spicy. So that's one thing you should do, is you should never give short answers, always extended answers, either give a reason why or give an example. Now, the other thing that I want you to know is that the IELTS speaking test is not really a test of your intelligence. So the examiner doesn't expect you to give very smart answers. And a lot of candidates want to give smart answers and they think too hard. Okay, so if I ask you a question, do you like the color blue? And then the candidate is, oh, let me think about it. I'm not sure. Well, you should give fast answers. So don't think too much about the answer. Just keep speaking because it will improve your score for your fluency. Now, the third tip I want to give you for part 1 of the IELTS speaking test is that you should watch your tenses. Okay, some of the questions are just going to be general questions. Like I said, do you like listening to music? But sometimes the examiner will ask you questions about the past. For example, what kind of music did you listen to when you were a child? And so if the examiner asks me that, then I need to use past tense in my answer. So I can't say, when I'm young, I listen to rock music. That would be the wrong tense. I should say something like, when I was younger, I liked to listen to rock music. And now I listen to different kinds of music. Whatever it is, always make sure that you use the correct tense when you answer the question. It could also be something about the future, and well, then you should use future tense if the question is about the future. Okay, so that's all I want you to know for part 1 in this video. I'm going to make more videos for part 2 of the IELTS speaking test and also for part 3 of the IELTS speaking test. But in this video, really, I only wanted to focus on part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. Thank you and see you next time.